Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about my favorite books that I read in July. So once again, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. I'm so glad you decided to click on this video. So like I said, today I'm going to talk about the best books that I read in July. I actually read 17 books, but I don't want to talk about all of them because there were definitely some that I did not like at all, but a lot of them were just kind of like middle of the road, and like nobody needs to hear about those kind of books. I will list them down below. If you're interested in the other books that I read and you'd like to chat about it, let me know, but I'm not gonna spend time in a video talking too much about those. So life's been a little crazy for me. I've just been working a ton and my schedule has just been kind of all over the place. There have been a lot of things going on in my workplace. We are currently in contract negotiations and it's not going well. So we have just put out a strike vote, and so things are just a little crazy in my life right now, in addition to other stuff with my family and all of that. So YouTube's kind of been not as focused for me the last few weeks, but I have this video, I have another one coming out that I'm gonna film tomorrow, and so hopefully this will just be temporary and will pass. But if you are wondering where my uploads have been, even though I just said I want to be more consistent, there you go, that's why. So, like I said, I read 17 books in the month of July. 6 of them I gave 5 stars, 4 of them I gave 4 stars, 6 of them I gave 3 stars, and 1 of them I gave 1 star. Yeah. That was a rough one. I'll probably talk about it at some point, but this is not that video. I am keeping things lighthearted and positive here in this one. So let's just get started with my favorite books of July. So the first book on this list is actually the first book that I read in July. So forgive me if my memory is a little shoddy here, but that is You Were Always Mine by Christine Pride and Joe Piazza. This was so great. I loved their book from last year or the year before that was called We Are Not Like Them, and this was even better, honestly, in my opinion. It's about a Black woman named Cinnamon who is living a pretty average life. She has a husband, she has a house, she has a job, she's just kind of getting by, and every day on Friday she goes to eat lunch in this park. She's a counselor at a community college, and so she eats lunch, and one day this woman, Daisy, comes up and they just kind of start chatting. Daisy's probably like 19 or 20, and it becomes a little thing they do. They share some French fries and just kind of chat about the world for an hour. And so one day, Daisy does not show up to their little meeting, and Cinnamon instead finds a baby in a carrier at the bench they always meet at. So she is quite confused, and there's a lot to unpack, and there's a note saying you need to take care of my baby, yada yada. Cinnamon didn't even know she was pregnant. I guess she's heavier, and so she wasn't really showing too much, and that's kind of where the story goes. Now, something of note is that, as I think I said, Cinnamon is Black and Daisy is white, and they live Virginia, I believe? Okay, I don't remember, but I know it's a pretty rural town, and there's just a lot of racism happening, I guess, and it's a whole thing because it's does Cinnamon go to the police because she doesn't want this to be the baby to be taken from her. She just wants to find Daisy, and she knows that Daisy will get arrested or things will just not be great, and it would be better to leave that out of it. But at the same time, she can't take care of this baby. She doesn't want this baby, necessarily, and her husband is hell no. And so there's just a lot going on. This book was just so beautifully written. The story was so engaging. I mean, I couldn't put this down. I listened to most of it on audio. It was on Scribd, so definitely would recommend that. But it just, I mean, you did not know where this was going. It was so shocking. There were some really good, kind of twists. And it almost reminded me, if you've read the book Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult, that is kind of a similar vibe to this, just in the whole baby with some racial stuff happening. Anyways, this was easy 5 stars. I absolutely loved it and I highly recommend it. The next one I have definitely talked about on here before, but that is Looking for Jane by Heather Marshall. I don't want to go too into depth with this one just because it's kind of a complicated plot and I've talked about it before. But this one is about 3 women in different timelines, and in the first timeline, a woman is sent to a home for unwed mothers in the 60s, and it is just really bad. It's like run by the Catholic Church, but they're selling the babies for profit. And the next timeline is about a woman who gets pregnant and kind of like needs to get an abortion, and how does she do that? She doesn't know how. It's the 70s. And the other timeline is a woman in the present day who is pregnant and finds this letter basically explaining to someone who lived upstairs that the mail went to the wrong place, that they're adopted, and this is why her parents didn't tell her. Again, that was a horrible description, but I've talked about this in other videos and I definitely recommend looking it up. This centers around a abortion network in Toronto from the 70s to when abortion became legal. I can't really remember what the date was, but it was so good. I mean, the takeaway, abortion is healthcare, and it's just disgusting how the government wants to control our bodies. And yeah, this does take place in Canada though, so I mean, their government too though. It's universal. It's universal. Abortion is healthcare. End of story. This book was amazing and it's a must read. The next one I don't have a physical copy of. I read it on NetGalley, but that is Under the Influence by Noelle Crooks. So this was a little bit of a slow start for me, but I ended up absolutely loving it. So it follows a woman named Harper who is trying to be a writer, but that didn't work out, so she got a job in publishing and then she got laid off, and she's just kind of really struggling to find what to do with her life. And her roommate finds this job for her working for a very well-known influencer named Charlotte Green. And this is a definite take on Rachel Hollis if you are into that momfluencer culture. I certainly am not, but I definitely find that Rachel Hollis is like a pseudo-celebrity I love to hate, so do with that what you will. It's clearly based off of that, and once I finished reading the book, I did find out that the author used to work for her, so that was kind of like sealed it for me. But anyways, she moves to Nashville from New York, and she's put into like company housing that's like essentially like dorms almost. And she works for this company. They're all like so peppy and fake kind of. And she's like, the hell is happening? Absolutely not. But like little at a time, she starts to buy into the whole thing. And then kind of like sees the dark side of this and how much of it is fabricated for the image, the public image. I loved it. I mean, it was definitely off to a slow start. I feel like it could have been maybe a little bit shorter just in the beginning, but I get why it was that way, just to really show the progression, I guess, from her being like a skeptic and like just not getting it at all to kind of becoming a semi-believer to being like a diehard to being like, wait a second, where I'm in a cult. So that was just a really great book. I loved this sort of like behind the scenes look at influencer culture, and I just really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars, and I really think if you're interested in that kind of like influencer culture behind the scenes, and I don't know, love to hate it also, you will really like this book. Next is All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. So I don't want to talk too much about this because there are some spoilers that happen pretty early on, and I obviously don't want to spoil them. But this is about a man who is the first black sheriff in a really small town in Virginia, and there's still like so much that's not right in this town with their racism and such. On the 1-year anniversary of Titus, is his name, being elected to be the sheriff, there is a school shooting, and 2 of his deputies shoot and kill the school shooter. He also, the shooter had shot and killed like a very, very beloved teacher at the school. And so there is just a lot to unpack there. Both of the deputies that were a part of shooting and killing this kid were white and he's black, and it gets so much more in depth than that. There is so much more twists and turns and just a lot more to say, but I don't want to spoil anything because it's just, there's a killer on the loose, essentially. You'll get it if you read it. I understand I already said that the kid, anyways, just, it was so good. I mean, if you have read anything by S.A. Cosby, this is just absolutely on brand for him. I have only read one other book by him, Razorblade Tears, which I also loved, but I actually liked this a lot more. I think I gave Razorblade Tears 4 stars and I gave this 5. It was just incredible. I mean, again, a story that's so engaging. I will say there are some definite like triggers in here. I don't want to say them because they are kind of spoilery, but if you need trigger warnings for anything, I would definitely look it up, or you can ask me and I'll tell you specifically. If you don't need anything like that, if you don't have anything that triggers you, then pick it up. It is just such a good, creepy, icky thriller. I thought it was incredible. And the last of my favorite books from July is Hey Hun, Sales, Sisterhood, Supremacy, and the Other Lies Behind Multi-Level Marketing by Emily Lynn Paulson. This was such a interesting look at MLMs and just the whole culture surrounding them. So another thing I love to hate is MLMs. Just absolutely fascinated by the way they work, by the delusions that people in them are under, and just by the way they just completely scam people, and it like using cult tactics. So this is very, very evidence-based. However, the majority of it, I would say, is a memoir, which I was actually not expecting. I thought this was going to be more just information, and I loved that it wasn't, honestly. We got to learn the story of the author, Emily, who was in an MLM. She doesn't mention which one, but you can Google it and find out. She ended up getting to the top and just realizing that, like, this was not it. And the way that other people were working so hard and seeing no results, and the way she was kind of doing nothing and was making money off the backs of others. Just exactly what MLMs are known for doing. So I really enjoyed this. There's also a kind of subplot, I don't want to say that because it's her life, but where she has an alcohol addiction, and the way that the MLM almost encourages drinking and not drinking is like, just, it puts you in a very weird situation with the sisterhood and the conventions and all of that stuff. So there is actually a lot about her alcoholism and how she kind of recovered from that, and in the process, it helped her like waking up from the cult that she had just found herself in. So this was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. If you've been in an MLM and gotten out, you should read this. If you are still in an MLM, you should definitely read this, probably even more so. If you are fascinated by MLMs, definitely pick this up. Honestly, it was a really quick read, and I really enjoyed hearing her story, and I'm just so happy that she was able to get out and is now able to tell her story and hopefully help others get out of their pyramid schemes. So those were my favorite books that I read in the month of June. I do have a couple honorable mentions I want to talk about just very, very briefly, even though I said I was going to keep this video short. The first one is The Honeymoon Crashers by Christina Lauren. This is an audiobook exclusive that I was able to get a copy of early. This is kind of a sequel-ish to The Unhoneymooners, and it was just adorable. It was just so cute and romantic, and I loved it. Wool by Hugh Howey. This is the first book in the Silo series. Silo was just a TV show, I think, on Apple TV Plus. So this is the first book in the series, and actually is way, way more than what happens in the first season of the show, because my husband watched it, and then I read the book, and I was starting to like ask him questions, and he like didn't know what I was talking about. So then I realized that the end of the first season of the show is like maybe a third of the way through the book. So Noted. I'm currently working on the second book in the series, but it's kind of slow going because I'm not a super into like sci-fi, and so sometimes I just need a little breaky break, but I really enjoyed that book too. And Sunshine Nails by Mai Nguyen. This was just a really cute family story about a family that owns a nail salon, and there's like a big bad chain nail salon opening across the street, and just kind of how they take them on and, you know, fight the man, the big guy, and because they're just a little family owned business. And it was really cute. I really liked it, and it was a sweet story. I liked the writing, and I would definitely read more from this author. So that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I apologize if my videos are a little bit all over the place, if I have not necessarily been as on it as I would like to be. It's just, I just am going through a weird kind of phase of life right now, and it's kind of just hard to nail down times to film, and with all my travel, and just, I don't know. I know I don't really have to make excuses or anything, but that's just kind of how it is right now. And that's, you know, it is what it is. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single view I get, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.